Olá, pessoal, boa noite, boa noite, boa noite. Vamos lá, outro momento histórico aí para as missões espaciais da humanidade. A primeira missão totalmente privada, uma nave com uma tripulação humana a subir para ISS. Passaram 17 dias lá com 50 experimentos científicos. Nós estamos retornando agora. Vai ter o undocking. Deixa eu colocar aqui Vou transmitir aqui diretamente da NASA. Quem acompanha minhas lives aí de exploração espacial já está acostumado. A gente pega direto lá da NASA TV. Coming up, ela está Axiom-1, o Undocking, que é ao desacoplamento da Estação Espacial Internacional, e o Splashdown. O Splashdown é a nave vai cair aqui na Terra, na costa da Flórida, no Oceano Pacífico. Isso vai ser amanhã. Vai ser amanhã por volta aí de 2 horas, então. A agenda tá toda colocada aí no YouTube e no Facebook, né? Pode acompanhar. Então, hoje é o undocking. Eu comecei a live agora 21h30, horário do Brasil. Olha, a NASA acabou vai entrar daqui a pouquinho. Vai ser 21h55, horário do Brasil. Deixa eu habilitar o som aqui da NASA. Sempre tem um começo emocionante, ó, mostrando a tripulação. Olha os 4 aí, o Michael López-Alegria, o Larry, o piloto, o Stibbe e o Mark Pathy. Os 4 lá se arrumando para a New Chapter Begins. Começa um novo capítulo na história da humanidade. Olha lá o lift-off, coisa linda, coisa linda. Coisa linda. Olha a Dragon lá, 400 km de altura, First Private Crew to the ISS, a primeira missão totalmente privada ISS, a Step to Expanding Space Travel. Axiom Space é uma companhia
Good
privada.
afternoon. It is Sunday, April 24th, and you're looking at a live view of Dragon Endeavour spacecraft.
Live view of Dragon Endeavour
from the International Space Station on its way back to planet Earth.
Então a NASA está dando aí uma boa noite aí. 24 de abril de 2022, 21h30. O retorno ao planeta Terra da nave Dragon. A galera já está em posição lá, os 4 astronautas.
Eytan, Stibbe, and Mark Pathy that you see on screen.
Michael López-Alegria, o comandante, né? O Larry Connor, o piloto. Eytan Stibbe é o primeiro especialista e o Mark Pathy é o segundo especialista. Um é de Israel, o outro é do Canadá. A galera passou 17 dias na ISS fazendo 50 experimentos científicos. Vamos escutar um pouquinho.
We are joining you from SpaceX's headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Andy Tran, and I'm a quality engineer
at SpaceX. Então a gente já conhece o Andy, nosso colega aí, né? A Trisha. Os dois vão transmitir a partir lá de Houston para nós.
Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, is NASA's
Houston,
Public Affairs
Texas,
Officer,
Johnson Space
Gary
Center.
Jordan.
Então,
Andy, you and I hosted the docking webcast for this mission on April 9th. Quite a lot has happened on station since then.
On the big loop, we are seeing on the ground that the C2 push-to-talk is being held, but we are not hearing anything on the ground.
A tripulação está comentando, tem problema de áudio lá, de comunicação.
The intercom between any of the other crew members after we had performed the swap on the boards.
Então, iniciando lá a saída da ISS.
No difference in terms of comms. Yes, Mike made 2 calls to you on the big loop from C2.
Okay, copy that, Larry. Stand by here while we just talk a little bit about that one on the ground.
Colocar bannerzinho aqui.
Quite a lot has happened on station since then, including an extended stay for this crew, as we've all been waiting for good weather around Florida. But it is great to be back with you. Launching from Kennedy Space Center on April 8th and docking to the ISS on April 9th, this crew spent their first 8 days conducting over 25 experiments, hosting numerous outreach events, and participating in a variety of technology demonstrations and planetary observations. And since then, the crew has packed away all of their critical payloads, including several for NASA into Dragon Endeavour, and all eyes have been on the weather.
Yep, wind speeds
Estão trazendo aí a
been a
bordo
challenge for the last several days.
de resultados dos experimentos que está a bordo aí da nave retornando para a Terra agora, né?
Steps here on the ground, we're going to swap back to our original configuration, let you know when that is complete, and then have C2 make another comm check back on the big loop. How copy?
Yeah, Mike, understand you're going to swap back to the original configuration. Once you do, you'll contact us, and then we'll have C2 try another comm check on the big loop.
Então aqui o Houston, então, a direita aqui, a galera lá em Houston, Johnson Space Center, fazendo todo o controle da missão, os 4 astronautas estão organizando a espaçonave para fazer o undocking da ISS.
Things continuing to progress and go well. But tomorrow is looking like a great day.
Está tendo um problema de
the
comunicação,
AX-1 crew home.
Um problema de comunicação entre os astronautas e a equipe de Houston.
Ones are no rain or chance of lightning in the recovery zone, both for the safety of the crew inside.
Tá dizendo que o tempo tá bom aí para hoje, para amanhã, né, para fazer o splashdown na Flórida amanhã também.
And relatively calm seas, so we can safely perform recovery operations, which includes landing a helicopter on a recovery ship to fly our crew back to shore.
Para fazer isso na
With the weather now looking good, we're very excited to bring you live coverage of the beginning of the return to Earth of AX-1, the first all-private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. This webcast will follow the crew's departure from the ISS and conclude once they've exited the approach ellipsoid, which is the imaginary outer boundary of the ISS. Then tomorrow, Axiom and SpaceX will pick back up with live coverage starting about an hour before splashdown.
Tá dizendo que nós vamos fazer aqui cobertura de 1 hora que a NASA vai fazer, né? Só do undocking. Amanhã vai ser o splashdown no Oceano Pacífico, na Flórida. Amanhã, a partir das 2 horas da tarde. Então, terminando ali, consertar ali o problema de comunicação, a gente vê aqui a imagem dos astronautas dentro da nave e a Dragon aqui acoplada na ISS. A gente vê que o narizinho dela está aberto aqui, ó. O hatch já está fechado, então, né? O hatch já está fechado, já fez aqui a despressurização, o teste de vazamento, tudo. A nave está pronta a postos aqui para fazer o undocking.
Once Dragon departs station, the crew's flight home is expected to last a little more than 16 hours. Dragon's going to use its Draco thrusters to thrust away from the station.
São 16 horas então a viagem de volta aí, né?
Or 4 departure burns to increase the distance between the spacecraft and the space station. Dragon will also execute a phasing burn to lower its orbit and line the spacecraft up with its landing
explicando
zone.
alguns detalhes técnicos aqui da missão, como vai ser a reentrância na atmosfera da Terra, né? E como vai ser a viagem toda, né? A gente vai acompanhar aqui só o undocking, que é a saída da SS, e o splashdown. São os 2 momentos que nós vamos fazer aqui uma cobertura por live. São 16 horas a viagem total, né? Começa hoje, então 2 horas da tarde de amanhã, segunda-feira, 25 de abril, estão chegando aqui, caindo aqui na Terra. A galera exercitando as mãos, organizando ali os últimos detalhes, 4 astronautas ali. Legal essa imagem, né?
Mike, LA has tried you twice on the big loop. And then prior to that, he tried you twice.
And copy that, Larry. We're seeing that on the ground and have been talking about that. Can we go ahead and have LA give us a comm check on Dragon to ground?
Os sistemas de solo estão dando um apoio lá para resolver o problema de comunicação lá.
So it does look like we are continuing to troubleshoot some communication issues. But for tomorrow, after we do the phasing burn, we'll continue with trunk separation, closure of the nose cone, a deorbit burn, re-entry, then deployment of the drogue and main parachutes, and finally splashdown off the coast of Florida, at which point our teams will recover the AX-1 crew. Dragon is targeted to splash down off the coast of Florida tomorrow at 10:06 a.m. Pacific time, followed by the crew getting picked up by sea by one of SpaceX's recovery vessels.
And as a reminder, just like its approach to the International Space Station, Dragon's departure and deorbit is designed to be fully autonomous, requiring no action from the crew on board. Let's go now to Gary Jordan at NASA's Johnson Space Center to hear about how the crew has been preparing for their return and what we can expect from here until Dragon departs from the
Gary
station.
Jordan, do Johnson
Gary?
Space Center, vai falar pouquinho aí de como que é o retorno dessa missão aí.
Hey,
Lá do
thanks,
Johnson
Trisha
Space
and
Center.
Andy. What a wonderful time this is to be with you guys for the end of the Axiom Mission 1. It's been an eventful 15 days on board the International Space Station. They got a lot done, but
Foram
of course
15
we've
dias
been
a bordo
doing a
da
lot just
ISS,
today
né?
and in the previous days to get ready for this moment. Over the past couple of days, the crew has been loading the SpaceX Dragon Endeavour, their capsule for the AX-1 mission, with cargo and just preparing for the undocking sequence. So they loaded about 200 pounds of science and hardware on board. They got in their launch and entry suits, and then they of course closed the hatch. That happened about 6:26
Dizendo que eles
p.m.
fizeram o
Central
carregamento com
Time, a little
200
bit
pounds
earlier, and then of course we broke our
equipamento
coverage for the
científico, pesquisas científicas,
depressurization
né?
of the vestibule. Right now, the vestibule
Isso
in
em
between
quilos
the
aí deve
Dragon
dar uns
hatch and
400 quilos aí de
the
experimentos
APAS hatch, or
científicos
the
que estão sendo
International Space
retornados aí
Station
para
hatch,
a Terra.
is down to
Fizeram o
vacuum.
fechamento do
But
hatch,
we're in a
né?
30-minute leak check
E
period.
agora eles estão fazendo
So because of that,
as
we're
últimas
going to go
checagens dos
ahead and
sistemas para
delay the
retornar.
undocking time by about 20 minutes.
O
The
leak
new
check foi
target time
feito, o
for
teste de vazamento
undocking
também.
the SpaceX Dragon Endeavour tonight is 8:15 p.m. Central Time, 6:15 p.m. Pacific. The teams, again, are in a holding period now as they're undergoing leak checks. There's a little bit of margin built into that, but of course, they'll be delaying that undocking about 20
Estão
minutes.
fazendo os
There's
testes de
not a
vazamentos também, leak
one-for-one
checks ainda,
impact
né?
to that splashdown
Deve
time.
atrasar
They can make
pouquinho
it
o
up
undock,
in the
estava marcado
phasing
para as
and still splash down right at the time,
9h55
Andy,
horário
that
do
you
Brasil.
reported,
Vai atrasar
1:06 p.m. Eastern Time off the coast of Florida. Within this window right now that we're in, it's about a 90-minute window for undocking. This is not like the instantaneous launch window that we typically see for launch. There's a lot of flexibility here, and of course we can make it up with the phasing to get our crew members home. Now, they've gone through a lot of steps so far. They've gone through the leak checks of their suits, which was A-OK.
Estão fazendo também o teste de vazamento dos trajes espaciais, né?
For several
Muito
hours now,
importante.
making sure that everything's okay.
Os
Looks
cheques
like
de
they're still working
comunicação.
through some of the items with the commander seat, and they'll continue to do so just up until the time of undocking. There's
Até
a
o
time
momento de
after
undocking,
the
né?
window for checking the leak in between the vestibule that they will perform a go, no-go poll for all of the flight control teams, including the International Space Station teams. It also includes the SpaceX and Axiom teams. Make sure everybody's go for a docking, for an undocking, rather, at
Antes de dar
8:15
o ok
p.m.
final, o
Central
go
Time
ou
tonight.
não go, né?
Now, once we get to that point, once we
fazendo
get
os
to that
últimos checks
go,
pra-
and we actually
pra ver
initiate the
se estarão
command,
prontos
that
pra
command
fazer
expected to be initiated
esse
about
undocking, né?
8:10 p.m. Central Time, 6:10 p.m. Pacific. That starts a sequence for undocking, including umbilical retraction and the 12 hooks that are currently holding the Dragon to the International Space Station to be released 6 at a time.
Para liberar os
couple of
12
undocking burns. They're
fechamentos
short
do
little
hatch que
pulses
estão
to
em
actually
volta
physically
da nave.
separate the Dragon from the International Space Station, and then a couple of departure burns to get outside what's called the keep out sphere, and of course what was mentioned prior, the approach ellipsoid. The approach ellipsoid about 1 kilometer away from the International Space Station and signifies the end of joint operations, officially NASA's role in all of this, and really we'll be handing it off to the SpaceX teams.
Está falando um pouquinho da trajetória do retorno da nave também, né? Os pontos de saída da órbita da ISS
Dragon
chegar à
Endeavour
órbita da
docked to the
Terra, né?
zenith, or space-facing side, the crew eagerly awaiting the next steps to get them home. And of course, we got a lot to uncover. We're still in that holding period right now for the leak checks, and we'll hold on to that for a while. That's expected for another maybe 10, 15 minutes before we can go ahead and proceed for that poll to go for undocking. Andy,
fazer
like you
o
said, the
undock,
weather's
né? 10,
looking pretty
15
great
minutos
for tomorrow, so
até
we're still trying
o
to
gol. O
undock
gol
today.
or
We
não
got that
gol, né?
90-minute
Provavelmente
window,
vai ser o
lots of
gol aí que tá
flexibility for the
tudo
teams,
sob
and we'll be
controle.
following along every step of the way. We're here in Mission Control Houston, going through the steps for
Então, o Gary tá
undocking
falando
the
lá do controle da
AX-1
missão em
crew
Houston,
from the
Texas,
International Space Station,
Johnson
concluding their
Space
long
Center.
and very productive stay on board the International Space Station. But for now, while we're in this period of monitoring the depressurization, making sure everything's good, why don't we toss it back to Hawthorne for a little bit, and of course we'll continue to stay here. But Andy and Trisha, back to you.
Retornou
Thanks,
lá
Gary.
pro Andy e a
As the
Trisha,
crew
né?
continues to prepare for undocking, let's get to know the crew a little bit better.
Vamos conhecer um pouquinho
So first
da
up,
tripulação, né? O Michael
López-Alegría. Serving
López-Alegría
as
primeiro.
commander for this mission is Michael López-Alegría, a veteran of 3 space shuttle flights, 1 Soyuz flight, and
3 voos
numerous
também, já
spacewalks.
fez um voo pela
MLA
Soyuz.
is no stranger to spaceflight. This is
Então já
not his
conhece
first
bem o
trip to the
espaço,
International
Michael
Space Station. In fact, his last one was Expedition 14, where he also served as mission commander. Let's take a
Comandante da
closer look at the
Expedição
commander
14,
of AX-1,
Expedição
Michael
14.
López-Alegría.
Michael, I want to know what the first time the feeling was when you got outside of the space shuttle.
Qual foi a primeira sensação na hora que você entrou na estação espacial?
You know, most astronauts that have been to space will talk about the overview effect.
Muitos astronautas tiveram espaço, vou falar um pouquinho do geral.
Change in perspective.
A mudança de perspectiva.
You know, these experiences are really unique. So I'm trying not
únicas.
to set expectations for the crew because I really want them to have their own interpretation of what it's
Ele
like.
quer que a tripulação dele tenha suas próprias interpretações.
Former NASA astronaut Michael López-Alegría.
Michael López-Alegría, algumas missões que ele participou, né? Ele é aposentado da NASA, né? Agora
In
ele é
2004, I was assigned to fly a
Axiom Space.
long-duration mission to the ISS. My 2 crewmates on the Soyuz would be a cosmonaut and then a spaceflight
o pessoal da Soyuz.
and I wasn't too keen with that idea. And the few weeks that I spent training with her and the 10 or so days I spent on orbit with her completely changed my view. It has been a complete 180-degree change of direction.
Ele mudou um pouco a visão dele quando ele participou dessa missão na Soyuz, né?
The thing about LA that's special is his patience and his skill, competence, his
paciência dele, a confiança dele, os colegas falando um pouquinho sobre o comandante.
AX-1 is the first private mission to the
Primeira
International
missão
Space
totalmente
Station.
privada
We
ao
are setting the
espaço.
standard for all future human spaceflight to the ISS.
Estão iniciando aí as futuras missões espaciais humanas.
Our guys have
Então ele
been
tem
training
consciência
for
da
months
importância
and they're trying to get a lot done, especially when it comes to scientific
momento, né?
experiments and outreach.
O pessoal está
But I
treinando
want them
meses,
to really
anos
enjoy
aí,
the
né?
experience and I want them to come home with a big smile on their face.
Então eles querem retornar à Terra com um grande
SpaceX
sorriso
training, it's
na
like being a
cara.
kid in a candy store. A new vehicle, love the human interface with it.
Falando um
It's a
pouquinho do
really
treinamento,
exciting and inspiring place.
I mean, it's feeling nostalgia already.
Lugar
Just by
inspirador
going
lá
through the
para
training
treinar.
process and being back in the business of preparing for a space flight is something I know he's enjoying thoroughly.
I've been involved with Axiom, which started out literally as a handful of people in 2016 to where it is today.
Ele uniu ao pessoal da Axiom desde 2016.
Hey, boss, don't screw up.
Hey boss, don't screw up.
I'm Michael López-Alegría, and I'm the commander of AX-1.
Sou Michael López-Alegría, sou comandante da missão Axiom-1.
Next up is Larry Connor, who
Larry
is
Connor,
AX-1's
agora o
pilot.
piloto Larry
Larry's
Connor.
experience in piloting over 16 types of aircraft and multiple
16 tipos
deeps,
de aeronave ele
ocean
já
dives set him
pilotou, né?
up well for this role aboard AX-1. While on
Ele é
board,
de
Larry
Dayton,
conducted
Ohio.
numerous experiments in conjunction with the Mayo Clinic and Cleveland
E
Clinic.
ele
Here is
faz
a closer look at
experiências
Larry Connor.
médicas lá do
Well, Larry, I
em
always start
Cleveland.
with the big broad question: why?
Well, it's
Por quê?
a big opportunity and
É uma
big
oportunidade
challenge.
muito grande, um desafio.
stranger to extreme activities, right?
Well, I don't classify them as extreme activities. I understand other people would.
Larry is an entrepreneur and
Ele
nonprofit
não classifica
activist
como
investor.
atividades extremas.
Larry Connor will
Ele
be the
entende que as
pilot
pessoas
for
podem
that
classificar,
mission.
mas ele acha que não.
The person who is there to be equally technically proficient as the commander.
Está falando um pouquinho aí da
My
qualificação do
pilot, Larry
piloto, os
Connor,
colegas dele,
American
né?
businessman, he comes
Proficiência
across
técnica
as a
como
no-nonsense guy. The words I would use to describe him are focused, organized, driven,
And he's a real
focado,
team player.
organizado,
I was really clear to
dedicado.
Axiom right from the beginning. I didn't want to be a space tourist. I didn't want to go
Eu não
up there
quero
and
ser
sit. This was an
turista espacial.
opportunity not
Quero
only
fazer
to
pesquisa, que ele
do
está dizendo.
exploring, but hopefully make a difference.
Quer fazer a
Well, Larry
diferença.
and the other astronauts are doing a couple of sets of studies, one with respect to heart function, the other with respect to these fundamental aging processes and the insights that we will get.
Células de envelhecimento, uma das pesquisas que ele vai participar.
Cancer survivors through to Alzheimer's disease. One of the things that Larry has been doing is
Desde de criança até pesquisas com células de câncer também.
determining once and for all whether some of these interventions work.
Legal a pesquisa aí do Larry, né? Bem ligada às questões de saúde, né?
Revolutionize how we think about and how we serve and how we
Ele
help
pretende revolucionar como nós pensamos, como nós servimos e como nós podemos ajudar as pessoas.
Make an example of what private spaceflight could be.
É um exemplo de como as missões espaciais privadas podem ser.
He's generous and thoughtful, and I just can't think of enough positive things to say about him.
You have to recognize all of the people up and down the line.
Tem que reconhecer toda a equipe, as pessoas que estão participando de todo o processo.
We've got a really talented, committed, resilient group of individuals.
Tem um grupo de individuais muito talentosos,
Amazing things really are possible.
focados aí.
I am Larry Connor, and I'm the pilot on
São
Axiom.
pessoas maravilhosas. Eu sou Larry Connor e eu sou piloto da missão Axiom-1. Show de bola, show de bola. Agora,
Next is Eytan Stibbe, who's one of our AX-1 mission specialists. Eytan had a significant mission in terms of objectives, working with the Ramon Foundation and the Israel Space Agency
então,
at the
é a Agência
Ministry of
Espacial de
Science and
Israel, né?
Technology.
Ele também
Eytan focused on
conduz
everything from genetic
pesquisas
diagnostics to
médicas,
arts and science
com
outreach.
diagnósticos
Here's a closer
genéticos.
look at Eytan's story.
Legal aí, ó,
What was your
pesquisas médicas
first
também.
spark to want to fly?
That's an interesting question. As a kid, I would close my eyes and dream that I was flying like Superman.
Quando ele era criança, ele fechava os olhos e pretendia que ele estava voando como super-homem.
This position.
Essa posição com a mãozinha assim.
F-16 is a beautiful aircraft. It gives the pilot a feeling of freedom in the three dimension.
O sentimento de liberdade nos voos é o que move ele também.
The aircraft performs what you wish.
He has this inner drive. You see it shine or spark when he's exposed to new cultures. My dad has been the last decade, his heart has been into impact investments to create infrastructure and to help communities.
The Rakia mission was built in the same manner to draw on the curiosity associated with human space travel, to conduct a wide range of experiments, educational studies,
experimentos científicos,
and even artistic
a curiosidade das equipes científicas, desenvolvia lá. Agora ele está falando lá em hebraico ou árabe.
Rakia patch. It has Rakia written on it in English, Hebrew, and Arabic.
A medalha
one
Rakia
dot up above
2022
for
que
the
ele
memory of
recebeu
Elon
lá.
Ramon.
Even though Israel is a technological country, space is something that ignites a curiosity.
Israel é um estado tecnológico e o espaço sempre aguça a curiosidade, né?
The mission is to change the sentiment in Israel about human space flight, to inspire children to look up to the sky.
Quer inspirar as crianças a olharem para o espaço e ver que é possível. E imaginar coisas.
Engines full power.
E tentar alcançar os objetivos. Só o liftoff é coisa linda.
Squadrons of F-16s in full afterburner. That power is incredible. I sat inside the simulator of the Dragon, looked up and imagined how that would feel.
I think it's going to be the most beautiful thing in the world.
Será a coisa mais linda do mundo.
Take off and seeing all the ideas and all the effort that has been done come to life.
Todas as ideias, todos os projetos foram feitos.
There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Se você quer ir rápido, vá sozinho. Se você quer ir longe, vá junto. Ele está feliz então de estar participando aí dessa missão. Deu um problema aqui de transmissão aqui. Voltou. Então, algum...
My name is Eytan Stibbe. I'm a mission specialist.
Sou especialista de missão da missão Axiom-1. Tá dando um delay aqui, deixa eu checar minha internet aqui. Internet tá ok, o delay tá vindo da transmissão da NASA aqui, talvez.
It's on AX1.
And finally, we come to Mark Pathy,
Mark Pathy, agora o
second mission
segundo
specialist for
especialista de missão.
AX1, a longtime philanthropist. Mark worked with the Canadian
É do Canadá, o Mark Pathy é do Canadá, também faz algumas
Space Agency,
pesquisas
as well
médicas
as
também.
Montreal Children's Hospital, to conduct a number of
Hospital
experiments
de
on vital
crianças
organ
lá
monitoring, ocular health, and
Canadá.
pain management. Let's
De
hear a little
Montreal.
more from Mark.
In your mind, as you're driving
Alguns
around
experimentos,
the pad
né?
site, would you have a drive-up song?
Drive-up song, alguma canção? Opa, uma música meio metaleira aí.
To get to that moment where I'm sitting in the seat, buckled in, and that countdown's beginning.
Quando ele senta lá no countdown, tá começando, no momento do countdown. 3, 2, 1, lift off.
I imagine what it's going to feel like physically in terms of lifting off from the surface of the earth.
Ele
It's hard
imagina
for it to
como será o
always seem
lift off
completely real.
fisicamente, sair da Terra.
Then a whole other chapter opens and a whole other adventure begins.
E outro capítulo na história começa, na história dele, né?
The anticipation's been killing me. Now here we are today. I'm ready.
Tá pronto, os
As a
treinamentos
proud
aí,
Canadian,
são
it was important to me
milhares de
to
horas de
really
treinamento que
highlight
eles
Canadian
fazem.
universities and Canadian research institutions and to give opportunities to those researchers and those
Hospital
organizations
de
that they
Montreal,
might
de crianças de
not otherwise
Montreal,
have.
que ele tá falando
Mark
pouquinho
was
então das
entirely
pesquisas
committed
que
to
vai fazer,
developing
né?
this mission as a scientific mission.
É uma
And
missão
the theme of
científica.
the mission was caring for the planet, caring for its people. We're going to be testing new technologies that can help us explore space, staying
Testar
longer and
novas
going farther.
tecnologias que
But
vai
more
ajudar a explorar o
importantly, can
espaço
help change
também,
our
né?
lives here on Earth.
There'll be a lot of physical and psychological studies that I'll be participating in
Estudos
up there.
físicos
A
e
lot of the
psicológicos
research
também.
that I'm undertaking involves using me as a
Algumas
lab rat.
pesquisas
That's the best way I can contribute. A lot of what one experiences in space in terms of
envolvendo
inflammation,
ratos
in
de
terms of
laboratório.
pain, psychological feelings of isolation.
Opa, a bateria tá acabando aqui.
Those are things that affect sick kids. To me, I would like to think that I'll leave this
Por isso que
world
minha
a better
bateria estava
place
acabando,
than
já
I
liguei.
found it.
The crew is setting a high standard for private astronauts in the future because they're dedicated to science, they're dedicated to the mission, they're able to learn all these objectives, they are building in educational outreach. It's
Então,
really
são
exciting
objetivos
watching this come
científicos,
together.
objetivos educacionais dos astronautas, é uma nova
to
era.
complete your science experiments and your educational outreach when you get on board ISS. We know you guys are prepared and we'll
Sabemos
be
que
supporting you
vocês estão
here
preparados,
from
estamos
Mission
aqui para
Control in Houston.
suportá-los e
There's a lot of people,
God
some
bless.
that I know and many that I don't, that deserve my appreciation and thanks and gratitude for getting me here.
Ó, já está no horário de fazer o
I'm a mission
undock
specialist on AX-1.
com atraso. Eu sou então o Mark Pathy,
Really
especialista da
love those
Axiom-1.
videos. It gives a great peek behind the screen of all the work that went into putting this mission together, the training that they had to go through, and what their goals are and objectives are
Então
overall
são
for this mission.
os
Pretty cool to
objetivos
see.
Yeah, I mean,
dos
the
quatro
team
astronautas
has a tremendous amount of support. They've been in
o
space
suporte de
for
toda a
about
equipe
16 days
por
now, a little
trás,
bit
né?
longer than planned, but they've been doing so much science, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but a tremendous amount of effort there from the teams.
Absolutely. So for now, let's take it back to Gary over at Johnson
Voltar
Space Center
pro
for an
Gary do
update.
Johnson Space Center para ver como é
Gary?
que tá lá os preparativos para o undock.
Hey, thanks, Trisha and Andy. Yeah, very good to see the crew. They, of course, made those packages ahead of launching to the International Space Station, and since have gone through more than 25 of their experiments. They conducted a number of outreach activities, reaching out to kids and organizations stations around the globe, and are now just getting ready to get home. While we were
Então, agora
running
eles estão
those
prontos
packages,
para
we did hear that
voltar
the
para a
leak
Terra
check
depois de
itself
fazer todo o
looked
experimento
very good.
científico.
So the vestibule in between the two hatches is down to vacuum. It was a good leak check. So now we'll just move on to the next sequence of steps. The
Já
main
fizeram o
one
teste de
is
vazamento,
the
estão nos
go,
próximos
no
passos.
go.
Então vai atrasar
If
pouquinho
everything
mais aqui
looks
também.
good weather-wise, which it is continuing to trend in a positive direction. The leak check was good. They're still working through making sure the communications are good. They'll do a
O
poll
leak
just to
check,
make
os
sure
testes de
that
vazamento
they
já
are
foi
ready to
feito.
undock,
Comunicação
and then
ainda
they'll
estão
go ahead
trabalhando
and
para
initiate
restabelecer.
the command to start that sequence. That sequence is set to start here in about 10 minutes, and then that will start a 5-minute sequence until the Dragon itself physically separates from the International
Então,
Space Station.
ora,
Right now, the
10
Dragon
minutos,
is connected by
10
umbilical.
minutos para fazer a separação
We have
física aí. Então tá
the
rápido aí.
umbilicals are providing power and
Atraso
data
somente de 10, 15
to the
minutos só.
SpaceX Dragon, and it is secured to the station by 12 hooks. What we'll see is the umbilical itself retract, then relying on the Dragon vehicle for the environmental control and life support
Eu vou
systems
verificar o
for
que é
the
hooks
battery
aqui.
and power, and
São
then
os
of course for
12
the communications,
hooks.
and then the hooks will start to
Deixa eu ver o que
retract.
é hooks
There's
aqui.
12 hooks, they'll retract
Ganchos.
6 at a time.
São
And
os
then they'll
ganchos, então são 12
conduct
ganchos
a
que tem em
couple of
volta essa imagem
pulse
que está aqui
burns.
atrás
They're
de mim, tá vendo?
called
Tem um
undocking
narizinho aqui
burns, just really
da...
short firings
Deixa
of
eu aumentar
the
a minha imagem
Dragon's
aqui.
Draco thrusters to
Tá
physically
vendo que
separate
nós temos
the
aqui
Dragon from the
o
International
narizinho
Space Station. Then we'll
da
go
nave
into
que
a
está
couple of departure
abertinho, ela está
burns, namely
conectada
departure
aqui
burn 0 and
na
1,
ISS.
each just lasting a
Então,
couple of
são
seconds,
12 ganchos
and
que
that will take the
conectam aqui
Dragon
essa abertura
outside of the keep out
circular aqui.
sphere
Eles vão,
and then behind
então,
the
liberar os 12
International Space
ganchos para
Station to
poder
get eventually below, and then
fazer o
start a
undocking da
couple of
ISS.
phasing burns to get in the right orientation, ready for that landing off the coast of Florida. Again, we're 20 minutes
então
behind,
da
so we're
chegada
looking
na
at
Flórida,
that
na
undocking
costa da
sequence to
Flórida
start
amanhã.
at 8:10 p.m. Central Time, with the physical separation targeted for 8:15 p.m. Central Time, and then they'll be able to catch up through some of the phasing to stick with that landing time that we advertised a little bit after 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
Confirmou o splashdown 2 horas da tarde do Brasil de amanhã, 25 de abril, 14 horas, então está confirmado o splashdown. Mesmo com esse pequeno atraso aí de 10, 15 minutos, confirmou o splashdown no mesmo horário, 14 p.m. Brasil, horário Brasil. Então, os minutos finais de checar os sistemas lá para fazer o undocking. Né, Lelica? A Lelica está assistindo aqui comigo aqui também. Esse momento aqui do undocking da primeira missão privada.
This is Mission Control Houston. We are hearing that there may be some availability to move that
na
undocking
ISS.
time up. Teams are evaluating now to see if we can move the undocking time up 5 minutes. We'll stand by.
5 minutes, 5 minutos. 5 minutos para o undocking. Tá chegando a hora. Interessante que a legenda aqui está em inglês e eu falo em português no meio aqui, mistura tudo, né? Fica inglês e português. Fica um port English. Português com English. Cinco minutinhos para o undocking da Axiom-1 Nave Dragon. 5 minutinhos.
Endeavour, we are go for undock and
Go for undocking! SpaceX Endeavour, go for undocking. Tivemos o gol. Maravilha.
SpaceX copies all.
SpaceX copy down. Houston está dizendo ok lá também. Communication problems já estão consertados os problemas de comunicação, hein? Deu certo. Já tem o gol da Dragon.
And there you have it. You're getting a live look at the SpaceX flight control team in Hawthorne.
Então, o time de controle em Hawthorne
confirm what was being discussed here on the ground. The teams are looking to move the undocking time up 5 minutes. So that sequence that I advertised before is set to start here in about 3 minutes, 5 minutes after the hour, 8:05 p.m. Central Time, 6:05 p.m. Pacific. It's a 5-minute sequence with the umbilical retraction and the hook retraction until there is physical separation with the International Space Station. That new time for undocking, physical separation at 10 p.m.
retirar a nave da ISS. É isso que nós vamos ver aqui, ao vivo aqui, né? Assim que tiver o undocking, a gente encerra aqui a transmissão e vê o splashdown só amanhã.
Standby 1, that should be as soon as we command the undocking sequence.
Preparativos para a sequência de undocking.
As soon as we command undocking, standing by.
Os astronautas aí do lado aqui e a equipe de missão de controle aqui da NASA aqui do ladinho também. E eu aqui do ladinho aqui fazendo essa cobertura. Momento histórico da humanidade, a primeira missão totalmente privada a
undocking sequence.
Undocking sequence.
It's a 5-minute sequence. We're looking at an undock tonight at 8:10 p.m. Time, 6:10 p.m. Pacific.
Um minuto para undocking, hein?
The crew's visors are down. This is an automatic sequence once they initiate the command to begin the sequence.
Uma sequência automática que vai iniciar.
The undocking time that we'll report will be the physical separation of SpaceX Dragon Endeavour and the AX-1 crew from the International Space Station.
A separação física da Dragon da Estação Espacial Internacional. 1 minuto. 1 minuto.
Undock sequence commanded.
Undock sequence initiated. Começou a sequência automática, então, do undocking.
You just heard confirmation of the initiation. The undocking sequence has begun. The umbilicals are retracting.
Os umbilicals estão retraindo. Deixa eu ver uma imagem da Dragon.
Umbilical demate complete and nominal.
O nariz dela aberto ali, então. Os 12 ganchos ali em volta ali vão ser retirados também.
Umbilical has been retracted. The first set of hooks, that's 6 of the 12, are beginning to retract.
Então estão sendo retirados aqui os 12 ganchos que conectam a nave ISS, 6 já foram desconectados. Faltam os outros 6. Ia colocar uma musiquinha de fundo aqui também, né? Próxima live vamos lembrar de colocar uma musiquinha de fundo. A gente fica muito ansioso aqui.
Again, Again, the umbilical has fully retracted, and the first 6 hooks of 12 are also retracting. Each of the hooks takes a little bit more than 2 minutes to fully retract.
Mais ou menos 2 minutos para tirar os 12 ganchos.
You see teams at the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston, Texas, as well as the SpaceX Flight Control Room in Hawthorne, California, eagerly watching the undocking sequence.
Então são os dois, Houston, Texas e Hawthorne, Califórnia. São os dois equipes de controle que estão monitorando.
The first set
Houston,
of hooks you heard, the 6 of them have retracted nominally. The other 6 are now driving in work. We're looking for an undocking 8:10 p.m. Central Time. We're on track to meet that.
Uma luzinha vermelhinha ali que está acesa bem do ladinho da nave. Parece o olhinho do HAL de 2001, de Odisseia no Espaço. Essa é a minha terceira live da missão Axiom-1. Fiz então a live do lançamento. Foi o lançamento, então, o lift-off do foguete do Kennedy Space Center, ao lado da Artemis, o Launchpad 39B, a Artemis estava no 39A. O lançamento foi a primeira live, o docking na ISS, que é o acoplamento, e a terceira live agora é o undocking, e a quarta vai fechar com o splashdown do mar amanhã.
The Dragon from the International Space Station will happen relatively quickly, so we'll stand by to witness
então,
that
os 12
physical
ganchos já foram
separation
todos retraídos,
and the official
o umbilical
undocking of
também.
the first private astronaut crew from the International Space Station.
Vai iniciar agora os procedimentos para a separação física da nave da ISS. Teste de vazamento, tudo ok. Teste de comunicação, tudo ok. Já tem o GO da missão lá em Hawthorne, Califórnia e no Houston, Texas. Os 4 astronautas estão todos sob controle. Agora a separação física, que é o que nós chamamos de undocking. Desacoplar da Estação Espacial Internacional. E iniciar a viagem de volta à Terra. Returning to Earth.
Open and nominal.
Todos os ganchos estão abertos.
Right on time,
e...
physical separation confirmed. 8:10 p.m. Central Time, 6:10 p.m.
Vou tirar uma foto, eu vou tirar uma foto. Eu vou tirar uma foto. Undocking!
Burns are nominal so far. SpaceX Dragon Endeavour and the first private astronaut crew, AX-1, separating from the International Space Station, concluding their 15 days aboard the orbiting laboratory.
Concluíram os 16 dias a bordo da Estação Espacial Internacional e desacoplaram. Estão no espaço agora. Estão no espaço. Saiu agora. O narizinho agora vai fechar o narizinho da nave.
And nominal.
Burn Complete Nominal. Burn são os sistemas de tração de propulsão da nave. Já estão completos e nominais. A luzinha vermelha agora mudou para verde. O olhinho do HAL, que era vermelho, agora está verde.
Nominal burns for the SpaceX Dragon Endeavour. That's a good undock burns in the first departure burn. Depart burn 0 looking good. Depart burn 1 coming up in about 5 minutes. That undocking time was 8:10 p.m. Central Time.
Então daqui a 5 minutos vai fazer a checagem do sistema de propulsão.
The Space Station was 262 statute miles over the South Atlantic Ocean, west off the coast of Africa.
No oeste da costa da África, que vão... Vai cair no Oceano Atlântico? Ou Oceano Pacífico? Puxa, agora eu me confundi aqui, hein? Acho que agora está nesse exato momento sobre o Oceano Atlântico, na costa da África, onde a nave está agora
Flight
sobrevoando.
controllers are tracking a good departure
Ela vai cair no Oceano Pacífico, na costa da
of
Flórida.
SpaceX Dragon Endeavour and the AX-1 crew inside. Everything's looking good.
Tudo
They're 45
está
meters
bem.
away from the International Space Station, slowly separating.
45 metros distantes da ISS, bem pertinho, né? Está bem pertinho, então ela está se separando bem vagarosamente. Parece que está mais longe aqui pela imagem, né? 45 metros da ISS. O Hawthorne Center ali, então, na Califórnia, está observando aqui à minha direita a imagem da equipe de controle no Hawthorne Center. E a Dragon, mais à direita, iniciando a viagem de retorno aí da jornada para retornar os 4 astronautas à Terra da primeira missão totalmente privada, humana, com tripulação humana, a ir para o espaço para missões científicas, por enquanto na ISS. Tem missões projetadas aí para a Lua e para Marte. Passaram 17 dias, então, no espaço. São 15 dias a bordo da ISS, fazendo vários experimentos, 50 experimentos científicos, entre experimentos na área de saúde, materiais, trajes espaciais, sistemas de sobrevivência na Lua e outras coisas mais. Microgravidade.
The SpaceX Dragon Endeavour and the AX-1 crew.
4 minutos do
undocking
undocking.
Just 4 minutes ago.
A
We're
SpaceX
expecting that
Dragon,
next
então,
depart burn coming up in
a
a
Endeavour
little bit more
e
than
a
a
tripulação
minute and a
estão
half.
verificando os últimos
That'll be
detalhes
depart
das
burn
máquinas
1
para
that will send the crew out of the keep out sphere, which is a 200-meter zone around the International Space Station with its own set of flight rules.
a zona de 200 metros, ó, depart burn 1.
Out sphere after that depart burn 1.
Aqui a imagem nós estamos mostrando 200 metros da ISS,
the approach
é o
ellipsoid
início
about a
do
kilometer
burn 1.
away. Once it exits the
Quando
approach ellipsoid that
inicia o
ends
sistema
the
de
joint
propulsão, não pode
operations
iniciar
and
dentro dessa zona por
of
questões
the
de
International
segurança.
Space Station teams that you see here in Mission Control Houston. It'll be SpaceX Mission Control in Hawthorne and the Axiom Space teams that'll have the responsibility of taking the crew from the approach ellipsoid down to a safe landing off the coast of Florida.
É a costa da Flórida mesmo que vai ser o splashdown. E esses 200 metros em volta da ISS é a zona de segurança. A nave, então, ela vai devagarinho, até chegar no ponto de 200 metros, onde o burn 1, o início dos motores de propulsão para a
And we're just
volta
a
para
few
a Terra.
seconds away from the next departure burn.
Está se aproximando lá do círculo de 200 metros ao redor da ISS, da órbita da ISS. Alguns segundos para chegar ali no departure burn, que é a propulsão aí de saída.
Trajectory is looking good, about a little less than 10 seconds.
10 segundos para chegar aos 200 metros da ISS. Olha lá, já tivemos algumas luzinhas ali. Acho que é o sistema de propulsão
There
tudo
you see
ligado,
it.
hein?
We got confirmation that depart burn 1 has started. You're seeing those
Depart
Draco
1 has
engines fire.
started. A gente vê lá. Que legal. Olha lá, vou tirar uma fotinha aqui.
This is about a 20-second firing.
Legal. Departure burn 1. Então já iniciou o sistema de propulsão para fora da ISS.
Part 1 burn is complete and nominal.
Complete
At this
and
time,
nominal.
you have a go to doff your suits per procedure 4.012. As a reminder, ground will be deactivating the big loop following exit from the approach ellipsoid.
SpaceX Endeavour, copy all, proceeding to 4.012.
Agora eles saíram já 200 metros, estão indo para o próximo ponto lá, ó.
Good readback.
Depart burn 01. Agora estão saindo para o próximo elipsoide lá, ó. É a próxima zona aí para sair da área de influência ali
And you heard
da
that's a
SS,
good
né, da órbita da
depart
SS.
burn 1. This burn is the last that will take them out of the keep out sphere and the approach ellipsoid, which you heard mentioned on the communications to the crew. In the meantime, it means that a lot of the flight rules for having those suits on during this particularly dynamic phase of flight with the undocking burns separating from the International Space Station,
A primeira fase dinâmica de separação da ISS, né, com o sistema de propulsão, é um pouco crítico.
Get out of those suits and stretch.
Puxa, eu queria
In
tirar
the
uma foto ali
meantime,
com
they'll
os
continue to
astronautas.
monitor. Of course, we're getting some views, though intermittent, from the inside the Dragon cabin, and they'll be able to move about the cabin, have a meal.
Vai ter algumas visões agora
rest.
da cabine da Dragon. Tirar uma fotinha aqui. E aqui no Brasil estamos acabando com o carnaval. Se aproximando aí do último elipsoide de controle da ISS para a nave ganhar o espaço.
We just got confirmation the Dragon.
Houston on the big loop. Dragon has exited the keep out sphere.
Então já saiu o keep out sphere, a esfera de controle ali da ISS, a nave a Dragon já está fora da zona de controle da ISS. Está agora retornando para a Terra.
4-member private astronaut crew have exited the keep out sphere. It'll be about another 13 minutes or so until they exit the approach ellipsoid and officially end joint operations.
Mais 13 minutos aí, 15 minutos para eles saírem do último elipsoide, né, para oficialmente terminar as operações a bordo da ISS. Mais 15 minutos para sair o último ellipsoid.
And we'll end our coverage after the approach ellipsoid exit, but the crew's journey, of course, has only just begun. You heard that there will be doffing off their suits or taking them off. That gets them nice and comfortable for the 16-hour commute that they have from the International Space Station down to a splashdown off the coast of Florida. They undocked just west off the coast of Africa. They'll do a couple of orbits of the Earth, and then, of course, splashdown off the eastern coast. Their primary splashdown target for this opportunity is Jacksonville, Florida, but they have a couple of backup opportunities identified as well. The teams will be constantly monitoring weather, making sure that it's okay. As you know, weather has been uncooperative for the past couple of days to get our crew members home, but looking at the weather for tomorrow afternoon, Monday the 25th, things are looking good, trending in the right direction. The teams, of course, will continue to monitor.
Eles vão continuar monitorando o tempo para amanhã para fazer o splashdown, né? E daqui a pouco, de 15 minutos, os astronautas vão poder tirar os capacetes, né? Tirar dos trajes espaciais para poder ficar mais confortáveis aí, para sair dessa zona dinâmica de sair da ISS e entrar na viagem de 16 horas de volta para a Terra. Eles retiram os capacetes especiais para ficarem mais à vontade. As condições de tempo estão, a princípio, favoráveis para eles descerem na costa da Flórida amanhã, às 14 p.m. Brasil. Eu quero ver umas imagens aqui dos astronautas para tirar a minha fotinho final e encerrar essa transmissão. E volta só amanhã no Splashdown, que vai ser bem emocionante também. A chegada dos astronautas aqui na Terra e o resgate deles no mar. E na televisão o carnaval se acabando ali. Aqui no Brasil, carnaval.
The Axiom crew is just a little less than 400 meters from the International Space Station. They're cruising right now. That was the last departure burn that we saw, departure burn 1. They're really in a coast phase now to get them out of the approach ellipsoid, and then they'll go through a series of additional departure burns and phasing burns to get them in the right orientation for a splashdown off the coast of Florida. Andy and Trisha, I don't know if you guys were watching, but it was absolutely incredible to see the Axiom crew undock from the International Space Station, especially during a nighttime. You really got to see those Draco engines
metros da ISS agora.
It was truly astounding from this end. Let's toss it over to Hawthorne, Trisha, and Andy. I wonder what your perspective was now seeing that the Axiom crew has undocked from the International Space Station, concluding their stay at the orbiting laboratory.
Thanks, Gary. Yes, it certainly was very exciting to watch the Dragon undock from the space station. Things are looking great right now. The crew is on their way to exiting the approach ellipsoid. And so after, about 15 days aboard the International Space Station, the first all-private astronaut crew is wrapping their mission that began just over 16 days ago now. It's been a mission full of scientific and outreach objectives with the overall goal of expanding space access to a wider global audience.
Welcome ceremony.
The historic mission began on April 8th with the launch of our AX-1 crew in the Crew Dragon Endeavour from Kennedy Space Center's Launch Pad 39A. Endeavour then made its approach to the ISS, culminating in a successful dock to the Zenith port. The crew, those are some really great shots of the Crew Dragon on Launchpad 39A. It was a beautiful day and a gorgeous view there of the Dragon approaching the ISS. The crew, after they docked, was then welcomed by the Expedition 67 crew in the official welcome ceremony. From there, they jumped right into their busy schedule, then maximized every bit of their time for scientific and outreach objectives. Some of it involved getting used to this entirely new environment. The crew had, over 700 hours of training to prepare for their life on orbit, but when it becomes a reality, it certainly takes some time getting used to it. For example, the fluids behave in a much different way. You have to figure out how to move your body around in a zero-gravity environment. So, there is a period of time to get used to it. The crew's time on station also included observations conducted from the cupola, which has a beautiful view of the Earth. There you can see a gorgeous view of the horizon and some gorgeous views of the auroras right above it. The crew was also able to film some of their day-to-day aspects of on-orbit life. You can see a food storage bag there with all different kinds of meals available for them to eat. I like the peanut butter can right there. These day-to-day aspects are exactly part of what they were able to show in the numerous outreach events that they held on orbit. Larry, Eytan, and Mark held several outreach events with students from many different schools and museums. Emily called an international committee conference to order, and Eytan spoke with the Israeli president while on orbit, highlighting Israel's return to space flight after Ilan Ramon, the first Israeli astronaut to fly, and marking Eytan as the first Israeli astronaut to be on the ISS. These kinds of events are critical to raising awareness and excitement for the future of spaceflight in future generations. Also, it's just, really cool to be able to talk to an astronaut real time while they're 250 miles above you in space. Now, additionally, one of the primary objectives of this mission was research and technology demonstrations. For example, the first ever successful demonstration of two-way holoportation shown by Mark there, which will enhance telemedicine efforts and help facilitate deep space missions. Additionally, optical lens experiments conducted by Eytan that you see on the screen there, the precision in manufacturing that they can achieve in zero gravity significantly bolsters deep space astronomy research efforts. Eytan also led a neural wellness technology demonstration to monitor brain activity. And they also had the Astro Skin vest demonstrations worn by Mark, which will directly inform new detection techniques for problems with heart, lung, and circulation systems. The mission wasn't only about science and outreach,
tem
though.
arte
The
também,
arts
tem
played
artista
a
lá.
big role as
Deles é
well.
artista.
MLA and prodigy pianist Black Bach made music and space history when they performed a keyboard and piano duet of an original composition. Eytan also displays here a beautiful ring specifically designed for microgravity. And those were just some of the highlights of the trip, and there was so much more accomplished than what was able to be shown in that video. We'd probably be here for the next 15 days if we went through in detail. But for those of you who are interested, please check out the URL axiom-space.com/AX1-research for an inside look into exactly what they were able to accomplish while on orbit.
Yeah, that was some really cool clips. I really liked MLA eating or I guess drinking or eating the ball of orange juice, and that space ring looked super cool. For now, Dragon is continuing to exit and distance itself from the International Space Station. We're going to check back in with Gary at
super cool.
In Houston, Texas for updates. Gary?
Vai passar para o Houston, Texas, fazer os últimos updates.
Hey, thanks, Andy and Tricia. Really great to see a lot of the activities that they performed on board the International Space Station. It was truly a sprint. When we talk about long-duration stays aboard the International Space Station, it's really a marathon. 6 months is a very long time, and they got a lot of experiments to do. But it's not to shy away from the amount of activities that were accomplished on board the AX-1 mission. Lots of science, lots of outreach activities. They truly did a lot, and of course that journey is now coming to an end. So far, the trajectory looks very good for the SpaceX Dragon Endeavour and the AX-1 crew separating from the International Space Station. Exit of the approach ellipsoid is just minutes away. They safely exited the keep out sphere, and we did hear confirmation that 2 of the 4 astronauts are already out of their suits, and they're going to start drying them to make sure that they're nice and comfortable for when they re-don them for the next dynamic phase of this flight, which is, of course, the re-entry through the Earth's atmosphere and splashing down off the coast of Florida. In the meantime, we'll follow from here in Mission Control Houston to make sure that they safely exit the approach ellipsoid, and we'll stand by for confirmation of that. And then, of course, from then we'll wrap up our coverage, but we'll be monitoring every step of the way with really the prime responsibility over with SpaceX and with Axiom Space.
Com a SpaceX e o Axiom Space, então tá tudo sob controle em Houston. Acho que a NASA vai concluir agora. Vai terminar e nós terminamos aqui também uma live rapidinha de 1 hora. Nós vamos confirmar a conclusão aqui também.
This is a live look from the flight control teams over in Hawthorne. They'll be monitoring the SpaceX Dragon Endeavour and the AX-1 crew through the 16-hour journey until they're safely returned to Earth. We just got confirmation the approach ellipsoid exit is expected in about a minute. From there, the teams you're seeing on the screen will take full control over the SpaceX vehicle and the crew inside. Right now, still enjoying with the International Space Station flight control teams here in Houston, just making sure they exit from the vicinity of the International Space Station. That approach ellipsoid, it's more like 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers is the exact specifications of that true ellipsoid. So we'll stand by for confirmation once they've exited that space.
Então, acho que eles já vão concluir, eles estão quase saindo ali o último elipsoide ali de interferência da ISS para poder ganhar o espaço e fazer o voo de retorno, aí, as 16 horas de voo de retorno. Ansioso aí para o splashdown amanhã.
Confirmation. The AX-1 crew has officially exited the approach ellipsoid.
Estão no Big Loop, já oficialmente saíram o último elipsoide da ISS, estão no Big Loop.
Houston will be taking down the big loop shortly. Expect ISS audio traffic to cease.
Estão numa safe drift trajetória, a trajetória está ok.
At this time, we also request swapping any audio destinations back to
Espero que
Dragon to
vocês
ground when able.
gostaram aí da transmissão. Vamos interromper os áudios aqui, o pessoal do Hawthorne lá. Vamos encerrar a transmissão. Agora é o áudio da Dragon. O pessoal da Dragon está falando aí agora. Thanks, Houston, por esse evento maravilhoso que tivemos. Tudo deu certo. Então a equipe, os astronautas agradecendo aí, Houston e Hawthorne.
All right, you heard it, folks. The AX-1 crew has exited the approach ellipsoid. They are officially outside of the jurisdiction of the International Space Station.
Estão oficialmente fora da jurisdição da Estação Espacial Internacional, do approach ellipsoid, do ellipsoide de aproximação. Estão agora na jornada de volta à Terra.
Commander of the mission, Michael López-Alegría, commending the work of the NASA teams and, of course, the teams at SpaceX and Axiom for their wonderful stay, an extended stay at that. 15 days aboard the orbiting laboratory. They got a lot to experience and, of course, a lot to share when they get to the ground. They're on a 24-hour safe trajectory right now, which means that if anything were to go wrong, they would be in a good course not to intersect or any conjunctions that are in the way. So everything's looking good on that end. So with that, from here in Mission Control Houston, we will conclude our coverage of this mission and truly hand it over to the teams at SpaceX and Axiom Space. It's been a wonderful ride. I've been very close personally to this mission, working very hard to make sure that they've been able to execute all of their activities on board, and it's been a true honor to be a part of this mission through all of the 15 days. A lot has happened, and it's really the beginning of something greater. This is the first mission of its kind, and NASA's goal is to see more missions like this. Private astronaut missions will be the customer demand in the future for NASA to be eventually one of many customers working side by side with private astronauts on commercial destinations. Folks, this is just the beginning of that era, and it was truly an honor to be a part of it. With that, that'll wrap up our coverage from here in Mission Control Houston. And to Trisha and Andy, I'll toss it over to you guys in Hawthorne to bring us home. Thanks for having us be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Well put. Thanks for walking us through the joint operations portions of the mission. Now that Michael, Larry, Mark, and Eytan have departed the International Space Station, it's going to take them about 16 hours until they make their way back to Earth. Next up, the crew will continue to doff their spacesuits and get a little bit more comfy for flight. In about an hour, they will get ready for a rest period that will last for about 10 hours, 8 hours for actual sleeping, and a couple hours for pre- and post-sleep activities. As they rest, our teams here will continue to keep an eye on the weather to ensure a safe return to Earth for Dragon and the AX-1 crew.
And should their current projections hold, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Monday, April 25th, Axiom and SpaceX will pick back up with live coverage of the conclusion of this AX-1 mission. Should teams need to adjust the timing of splashdown, it is our plan to go live about an hour before splashdown occurs. For the latest on the timing of this final stage of the AX-1 journey, be sure to visit axiomspace.com, and you can track Dragon's flight on spacex.com/launches. From all of us at Axiom Space, thank you to NASA for the incredible efforts made on this mission towards the shared goal of opening low Earth orbit for commercial endeavors. And thank you for tuning in. We look forward to sharing the culmination of this mission with you soon.
Encerramos aqui então o Undocking. Encerramos. Então já vamos concluindo. Foi rapidinho aí, 1 hora aí de Let's go forward to the moon to discover the last on Earth solar system beyond the Holy Ground. Enquanto nós vamos para a Lua e para Marte, descubra aí as próximas pesquisas na Terra. A NASA aí, ó. A NASA é show de bola. A tradicional imagem aí da Terra aí da SS é uma coisa linda. deixei de fundinho. Enquanto eu faço o encerramento aqui da live, Mission Axiom-1, que diabo de missão é essa? É a primeira missão privada, totalmente privada, 100% privada, com tripulação humana, a sair aqui do Kennedy Space Center e acoplar na ISS, que é a Estação Espacial Internacional. Até agora só haviam missões públicas, então são de estados, né? Estados Unidos, Rússia e outros estados que enviam pessoas lá para a ISS. E essa é a primeira missão privada. Então, historicamente, é muito importante. Por isso que eu fiz a cobertura. Essa é a minha terceira live da Axiom. Amanhã vai ser a quarta e última, que é o Splashdown. É historicamente importantíssimo que estamos iniciando uma nova era de exploração espacial com a pegada comercial. Dinheiros privados, então, vão entrar. E o foco da NASA qual é, então, agora? Ela quer focar na Lua, quer focar na missão à Lua, Artemis, na missão Artemis para a Lua, que a gente está fazendo a cobertura já também completa aí da Artemis 1. Ela teve aí alguns atrasos aí por conta de alguns vazamentos lá nos tanques de hidrogênio e oxigênio, né? Quem acompanhou minhas lives viu isso, né? O que aconteceu, e não conseguiu terminar o Wet Dress Rehearsal para o teste final para o lançamento, que iria ser em junho de 2022, não vai ser mais. Com esses atrasos aí, nós vamos postergar aí para julho, agosto. Vamos ver aí o que vai acontecer. Então a NASA quer focar na Artemis, quer focar na missão para a Lua e fazer uma base de colonização lunar, um gateway. O gateway é tipo uma ISS na Lua. Colocar uma estação orbital na órbita da Lua, estão chamando de gateway, é um ISS lá na Lua, e para fazer essa transição aí dos voos da Terra para a Lua, para chegar no gateway, e depois acoplar os Moonlanders, né? A gente fazer descida lá na Lua, e tem os projetos de colonização lunar, e fazer umas bases lunares lá também. Para, em seguida, nos próximos anos, tem a Artemis 1, 2 e 3, depois a gente fala sobre ela nas próximas lives, fazer a ida a Marte, né? Fazer a ida a Marte, e colocar ser humano em Marte. Meu Deus do céu, eu quero estar vivo para ver isso, quero estar vivo para ver a gente descer o pezinho em Marte pela primeira vez, quero ver isso. Então, o foco da NASA é isso. Nas missões à Lua e a Marte. E aí, esses trabalhos científicos e tecnológicos importantíssimos também desenvolvidos na ISS, que é a Estação Espacial Internacional, vai ser uma parceria público-privada. Então, a NASA entra aí com os facilities, né? O Kennedy Space Center, que é as plataformas de lançamento, o monitoramento, o Houston, o Hawthorne, Mission Control, ajuda tudo nisso, mas o foguetão mesmo, as espaçonaves, são totalmente 100% privadas, foi essa aí que nós acabamos de ver, que é a Axiom-1, a Endeavour, a Dragon, missão Dragon da SpaceX, duas empresas que são SpaceX e Axiom-1, Axiom Space. Axiom Space e SpaceX se juntaram, junto com a supervisão da NASA e o apoio da NASA, para subir a primeira missão totalmente 100% privada, com tripulação humana, a ISS. E aí vai iniciar uma nova era aí dessas parcerias privadas e comerciais com a ISS, né? Fechando então, fizemos um undocking da ISS. Essa foi a minha terceira live de cobertura da missão Axiom-1. E esse foi o undocking. A Axiom então subiu, 4 de abril foi lá para a Estação Internacional, um dia para ir, 15 dias para ficar, mais um dia para voltar, dão 17 dias ao todo da missão Axiom. 15 dias a bordo da ISS, conduzindo pesquisas em microgravidade, trajes espaciais, materiais, células de envelhecimento, células cerebrais, desenvolvimento cerebrais, pesquisas direcionadas ao Hospital de Crianças do Canadá, e Hospital do Câncer também. Então, várias pesquisas médicas que o pessoal fez lá também. E trazendo esses estudos para serem referendados e reestudados aqui na Terra. A partir de amanhã já chegam aqui. O Splashdown é a caída, a nave então desacoplou. A gente está vendo uma imagem, acho que não ainda é a visão da ISS ali da Terra. Desacoplou da ISS, a Dragon, 16 horas de voo até a Terra. Então amanhã, 14 horas da tarde, é o Splashdown, a navezinha faz a reentrância na atmosfera da Terra, que é o momento mais crítico, né? O momento da reentrância. Altíssima temperatura, a nave tem que aguentar, e ela cai, faz o que eles chamam de splashdown, é o splashdown na costa da Flórida, e aí a equipe da Marinha dos Estados Unidos já está toda preparada ali para fazer o resgate dos astronautas no mar ali, que vai ser amanhã. Beleza? Feito então essa cobertura, ficamos para a quarta live da Axiom-1 amanhã, 25 de abril de 2022. Um beijo, amados. Deus abençoe. Até amanhã. Com Deus.